Hey there folks, sockeye salmon season is almost upon us here in Washington State, which means the Brewster pool is going to be opening in a few days, Baker Lake, and more than likely Wenatchee is going to be opening very soon. I've fished all of these bodies of water multiple times over the past few years, so I thought I'd just go over the rigs that I use, my tackle, leader lengths, leader material, all the stuff that I get pummeled with questions every year. Just thought I'd go over everything. There's a lot of similarity in all of these different fisheries and how I approach them, and I've always had really good success. So let's just get started right away. Now for me, for rods, I am using my king salmon gear, and I mostly fish in the Brewster pool where there are big summer Chinook. And if I tie into one of those bigger Chinook, I just like being able to dictate the terms of that fight better with a more powerful rod, especially out of respect to the other anglers that are around me, so that I can get that fish out of their way so I don't get tangled up with a bunch of other people's gear. So that's why I run king rods. I know a lot of folks out there running kokanee rods, and that's fine if that's their choice. And definitely on places like Baker and Wenatchee where you're not likely to tie into a big king, it's probably fine. But in those places, it can still be very combat fishery. And so I just like having a little bit heftier rod. You can land these fish on anything from a kokanee rod up to a Chinook rod. I'll say that it's not as fun catching them on these king rods. But like I said, it's just, I do it out of respect to the other anglers around me. It's your personal choice. Okay, for your main line, I would suggest at least going 10, 15 pound or higher. I'm running a heavier pound braid here. And how this rig is set up, I'll show you. It's very simple. I run all of them the same way. Let me get some excess play here. All right, so here's my main line. I'm gonna set this down. All right, here's my main line here, and I've got a sliding weight system down to just a heavy duty swivel. You can use a bead chain there if you want. If you watch my channel, you know that I'm really fond of using snap weights. Snap weights work really great when you're trying to put distance between your weight and your gear for various reasons. But in this situation, I actually want my weight as close as I can get it to my gear without affecting the action of that gear. The reason again is because this is a combat fishery. If I have to use snap weights and I'm playing out a bunch of line way out behind me, then that means I'm more likely to get tangled with folks. And a lot of times I'm only running 30 or 40 feet of line out when I'm targeting these sockeye and these combat fisheries. So I just use a sliding weight rig really tight to the gear. So beyond that, I have a bumper of usually anywhere from 20 to 40 pound monofilament. This is 30 pound. I do about 2 feet here. I got one dual lock here on the top and one dual lock here on the bottom. Then attached to that dual lock, I'm going to put a dodger. Now my number one favorite dodger for these sockeye salmon is my Lure Jensen herring dodger size 1. I put tape on them and make them fancy. I call this one my triple dot. It's absolutely my best producer. Just 3 simple pink dots. It has a really good action at the slow troll speeds for these sockeye, which they generally prefer somewhere around anywhere. Well, if you're at Baker Lake, they like it really slow, like 0.8 to 1 mile per hour. I find it's a little bit faster in the Brewster pool, upwards of like 1.5 miles per hour to as low as 1. So that will just clip directly into that heavy duty duo lock there. Other dodgers that I really like are of course the Mack Double Ds. They have a bunch of different tapes on them. Moon Jelly is by far my favorite. And then the larger Sling blades are actually pretty good too. I put a hefty bend in them so that they give good action at those slower troll speeds. Oh, and before I get weights, I'm going to usually have an assortment of 3 to 6 ounce cannonballs. That usually gets me within striking distance of most of the depths that these fish will be at. Especially early season at Baker Lake and Wenatchee, they might go quite a bit deeper as the water temps go up. So you may need heavier cannonballs or downriggers. If you're using downriggers, you can just forego the whole sliding weight rig system in the front. But you can also just leave it on there if you want to be able to bounce back and forth between downriggers and sliding weight rigs. Okay, now let's jump into lures, the thing that everybody gets hung up on. Using a variety of Hoochies and spinners here, and I'm going to go over these one by one. Definitely my number one producer at Baker Lake last year was just a simple and plain pink Hoochie. I tie these on 30-pound leader, again, because I'm dealing with kings. The sockeye don't seem to be that leader shy, so that's not a big deal. So just a little 1.5 inch, 2 inch pink hoochie. I use the Matsuo sickle hooks there. They've got a really nice shape to them. They hold those fish well. And I always use bead chains or swivels at the top. I don't use surgeon's loops just because these fish are so squirrely. They tend to wrap it around, and a lot of times it'll cut on that right at the base of that surgeon's loop. I just seem to have that happen less often. Leader length is going to be anywhere from 10 to 15 inches. So I like to keep it pretty short so I get lots of action on the Dodger. Now my number one lure here in the Brewster pool is spinners. It has been for the past couple years. So I like these little moon jelly spinners. These are from Paulina Peak. I actually buy the spinner and then take off the kokanee hooks. It just has a really nice shine to it. They seem to really like it. This one I'm actually using oversized Gamakatsu drop shot, split shot hooks, size 1/0, and I catch lots of sockeye on that too. So you can really vary up your hooks here. So that spinner works great. I've also got one that this was 2 years ago. This was absolutely, like, I couldn't keep them off of this. I think I was going like 4-to-1 on this Paulina Peak. It's like a gold and chartreuse and orange tip to it. It's just one of my favorite sockeye spinners. I tried it at Baker Lake. I couldn't get anyone to bite anything, but they love just plain pink hoochies. And then another one that's really good both in the Brewster pool and at Lake Wenatchee was just a really simple spinner. This one is just homemade, just a couple pink or red beads and then a little smiley blade on the front and gold, silver, moon jelly. Keep these very simple, diminutive. Often the more diminutive the presentation is, especially at Wenatchee, the more bites you'll get. Speaking of Wenatchee, I would be amiss if I didn't talk about the best producing setup for Lake Wenatchee, which is literally 2 plain bare red hooks with a little glow bead in between. That's it. And remember, at Wenatchee, you can't run bait. And this thing just slays them at Wenatchee. It's crazy. They really do just love plain red hooks with a little glow bead, especially right in that early light in the morning. Who would have ever imagined? I've run it out in the Brewster pool, especially when the fish are pressured and they're seeing lots of stuff, and this actually does work pretty well. Although I will put a little bit of bait on there that does seem to help get the bite going. But you can play around. I've got lots of other spinners here that I've used and other hoochie colors. You know, a lot of people ask me, well, what about running like 360 flashers and super baits? Definitely, they do work. I catch a lot of bycatch sockeye that way out in the Brewster pool, but with the Brewster pool being closed to kings this year, I'm really going to err more towards the sockeye specific gear and just focus on that because I really don't want to. Sorry about my pheasants. I don't really want to deal with fighting with kings. I'm just going to have to let go. I'm just going to be out there to put my sockeye in the freezer. As far as baits go, coon shrimp is number one here, at least in the Brewster pool. I use looney coonies. I've caught sockeye on lots of other different brands. I just like looney coonies because the quality is better. They're firmer. They go through them one by one. They pick out those ones with the black bodies and throw them out. You get a lot of black body mushy ones in the other jars, and I don't have to deal with that. I know that every one I get here is going to be firm, and you can even email them when you put in the order and tell them you want for your sockeye fishing, and they'll get you the little bit smaller size, which is sort of perfect for these sockeye fisheries. I know guys running sand shrimp at Baker Lake and doing very well too, so don't feel like you have to run just coon shrimp. It's just, I always do coon shrimp because it's almost impossible to find live sand shrimp in anywhere near Brewster, Washington, where I live. All right, guys, that's the setup. Just keep it simple. Don't overthink it. Don't overthink scents and all this crazy stuff. Just get that presentation down there in the right speed and have those leader lengths the right length, and you're gonna catch some fish. So you can definitely review all of my other videos that goes through more of the details about like access to the fisheries and the techniques I was using and the thought process I use when I'm out there. If you have any more questions, hit me up in the comments section below and I'll get back to you. And just remember, fish smarter, not harder. Bye, guys.